Can your stubbornness kill you? Well, of course it can. Here's an example. Years ago, I was working as a paramedic, and it was Christmas evening, probably around 7 o'clock. And we had a call to a house where the daughter of the man who was having the problem was concerned about him. So we go over lights and siren, and as we walk into the house, and there's like the family there, and there's a man about mid-70s. He's in the big comfy chair. And the daughter says it's him. So we go over and we start talking to him, and the family said he was complaining like of chest pain, like a mild ache. And it was getting a little bit more severe. And when he looked at him, he looked bad. He was ashen gray. His skin was cool to the touch. He's pale and he was sweating. That's a classic sign of a heart attack, especially when he's having like a mild ache in his chest. So we said, well, you should come up to the hospital with us. He says, no, I'm not going up to the hospital. And he tried to actually kick us out of his house. He says, get out of my house. There isn't anything wrong with me. And we're very good at convincing people to go to the hospital. I says, listen, you're kind of ruining your whole family's Christmas here. Why don't you come up with us? And they'll do some tests on you. And if everything's fine, you'll be back home in an hour and a half. I lied. Show me the emergency department where you can go in and out in an hour and a half, and I'll eat my hat. Anyways, he decides, okay, I'll go. And so we got him in the ambulance. We had him hooked up to the cardiac monitor, had oxygen running, and he looked at us and he says, I don't see why you guys are making such a big deal out of this. And then his eyes kind of rolled up into his head, and he died. And we did everything we possibly could, but he died anyways. It was his own stubbornness and denial, which is very common with medical emergencies, that killed him. Have you ever noticed that some older adults may hesitate asking for help? I don't want to bother anyone. No, I'm okay. I'll be okay. We attended one lady in her 80s. It was around 2 o'clock in the morning, and she fell. And luckily, she was very close to the phone. She crawled, and she called for help. And so, when he got there, we asked, when did this happen? She said, well, it happened hours ago. And I said, why did you wait so long? And she said, well, I didn't want to bother you boys. Didn't want to bother us. That's what we're there for. That's what paramedics are there for, to be bothered in the middle of the night to help people. But she was so considerate that she didn't want to bother us. If you need help, you call for an ambulance. Sometimes people may convince themselves that, if I just wait a little longer, whatever is wrong with me will just go away by itself. They're having chest pain or they're having dizziness, and it'll go away by itself if I go lay down. No, that's not the case. If you're having dizziness, it could be a stroke. Time is brain cells. Chest pain. Time is heart muscle. Don't waste time, because that can mean the difference between life or death. Or, okay, so it may not kill you, but it may damage you so much that you won't be able to sit up and feed yourself again, or you won't be able to go to the bathroom without help again. Wasting time in an emergency situation can end up costing you your independence or your life. After 25 years as a paramedic and firefighter and responding to thousands of calls, I can tell you one of the most dangerous decisions a person can make is not calling for the proper help. One thing I saw over and over again that caused people to delay calling for help was this: stubbornness. Everyone knows someone who could be stubborn. In fact, they may be sitting in your chair right now. Many of us grew up believing we had to tough it out. The old expression, walk it off. You got a broken leg, well, just walk it off, kid. I was told you can't run to the doctor for every little thing. And actually, back then, they did house calls when I was a kid. Now, I don't think there were concussions back then. Well, they didn't call it traumatic brain injuries. It means you got your bell rang or whatever. And I boxed very competitively back then. And I was about 17, 18 and nationally ranked. And I got knocked out clean out, national television. And then they say, well, geez, kid, maybe you should take it easy for the next couple of weeks. That was it, how things have changed. Those same attitudes can become deadly when it comes to medical emergencies. And now we're more likely to have a medical emergency than we were when we were 18 years of age. And medical emergencies should always be taken seriously. I've attended people who have ignored their chest pain for hours and hours and hours. and some waited until the pain became so unbearable they had to call for an ambulance. You don't mess around with chest pain. Here's a tip. It doesn't have to hurt a lot to be serious if you're having chest pain. Heart attacks don't have to hurt that much. It might just be like a mild ache. Other people didn't call, though, because they didn't want to wake up their spouse, or they didn't want to bother their children. And this is one of my pet peeves. 2 o'clock in the morning, they're having chest pain or shortness of breath, and they call their children first. So the kids drive across town. 45 minutes later, they get to the house, and they say, oh, geez, we better call for an ambulance. No. Don't waste time. If you're having shortness of breath or chest pain, or any emergency, you call for the proper help. Then you can call your kids. A surprising number said this, I didn't think it was serious. Unfortunately, by the time we arrived, the damage to the heart had already been done because they waited so long. Minutes matter during a heart attack, and minutes matter during a stroke. And the sooner treatment begins, the more heart muscle doctors can save, and the more brain cells they can save. Waiting can mean the difference between returning home or never returning home. People with stroke symptoms who wanted to, I'm just going to go sleep it off. People with abdominal pain who waited 2 or 3 days before calling for help. If you have pain for 2 days, something isn't right. Let's talk about another common situation, falls. Many people who fell insisted they were fine. Then they couldn't stand up, or they had a broken hip and they're insisting that they're fine. Some people lay on the floor for hours because they didn't want to call for help. That's not independence. That's unnecessary suffering. Real independence means making smart decisions that keep you alive and healthy. Here's something else I noticed. Many people worry about wasting the ambulance crew's time. Please don't think that way, as paramedics would much rather respond to someone whose symptoms turn out to be minor instead of arriving way too late because someone waited too long, and now they're in a very serious situation. If you call for us, you're not bothering us. That's what we're supposed to do. Also, stubbornness keeps people from getting hearing tests, eye exams, or blood pressure taken, cancer screening, and the common one is using a walker or a cane when they need one. They don't want to do it because it makes them look old. Sometimes pride can quietly steal our health. So here's a question worth asking yourself. If your spouse had the same signs and symptoms you were having, whether it's chest pain or shortness of breath, would you tell them to wait? Would you say, you're fine, don't worry about it? Or would you call for help immediately? Most people would insist their loved ones get medical attention as soon as they possibly can. Yet somehow we're willing to take chances with our own health. One of the greatest gifts you can give your family is not your toughness, it's your willingness to stay healthy. Your children and grandchildren don't need you to prove how stubborn you are. They need you around. So here's my challenge for you. Make yourself a promise if you experience symptoms that concern you, whether it's chest pain, difficulty breathing, sudden weakness, vision problems, or other signs of a stroke or a fall or other problems, don't wait. Don't hope that it's going to go away by itself. Don't worry about bothering anyone. Call for help. Call for an ambulance if you think you're having a medical emergency. It could save your independence and it could save your life. After decades of working in emergency services, I've learned something very simple. Most people don't regret calling for the help too early, but many families regret for waiting too long to call for help. Don't let stubbornness make a decision you'll regret for the rest of your life. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe, stay active, don't let stubbornness get the best of you, and if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and share it with someone who you think can benefit from it.